Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax Pets here with an unboxing. Something a little unusual for the channel that I've done here this time, that I'm doing here this time. This does relate to my pets because I'm unboxing something that could go in my vivariums, and some of these will go in my vivariums. But yeah, it's actually from Airplant shop. This is an Airplant order, a Tillandsia order. I have kept Tillandsias before, and I have quite a few Tillandsias, or well, several Tillandsias from a few different sources, but I have not, I don't have any currently in my vivariums, and I wanted to put some in. So this one is Tillandsia Ionantha, Mexico locality. There are lots of different localities of the species of Tillandsias, as well as hybrids and things like that are going on. And these can do really well in Vivaria. Some of them in different setups too, the different Tillandsias with different needs. This one is pretty adaptable as long as it doesn't sit there and stay wet for too long, and it doesn't get too dry, and it gets airflow and decent light. It can do really well. So it's a good candidate for things like temperate and semi-tropical Vivaria, things like that. You wouldn't want to put it with dart frogs in most cases, but with things like crested geckos, mourning geckos, even my garter snakes, this could be a good one. So there's one of them. I'm going to switch these around actually, and we'll put the plants here. Now that I have the box, put the box over here. Let's see, I'm going to put the box there so it doesn't mess up the light. And let's see what we got here. Okay, so this one is green stricta. I don't think I've kept this species before. It gets quite a bit larger than the Tillandsia Ionantha and has flatter leaves. And one nice thing about these is that the leaves being flat, if they curl towards the center of the plant and become almost a tube, then you know that they need a lot of water. They need more water, and if they are more flat like this, then they're doing okay. This is a nice big one. This one might go in one of the crested gecko enclosures. They seem to do really well with geckos and things like that. Let's see. This one here, this is a good candidate for desert Vivaria. So I may eventually put some of these with our leopard gecko. I really love these too. They're a fun little plant. They're sometimes called fuzzballs or snowballs because they have this little hair-like structures on them. All Tillandsias have them. You can see them. They're pretty visible on this Ionantha Mexico too, but not quite as heavily, and they're less visible on this one, but they all have them. They're called trichomes, and they're like little structures that are for absorbing nutrient content from the air, and also for absorbing water. And these are from parts of Ecuador and Peru where they live on rocky cliff sides and things like that, and they absorb. They're built to absorb water really well. These trichomes help them to reflect excess sunlight. So they're super cool little plants, and these could do well, like I said, in a desert vivarium. They, unlike most Tillandsias, which need to be watered by soaking, these you just kind of mist them and then let them dry out completely, rather than soaking them for 20 minutes or so like you can with some of the others. That would be overkill for these because they're desert plants. And I have one of these that I've had for a while already, and like I said, these may go in a desert vivarium, and I may just keep some out, but they're super cool looking, I think. They remind me of tribbles. This is the closest thing botanically to a pet tribble that you could get, I think. Okay, this one, the naming conventions are a little confusing, but it's known as abdita. It's also known as Tillandsia brachycaulos. Another one with wider leaves. They get fairly large, and these do really well in a lot of vivarium situations. So I think some of these are going in with various geckos that I have, either crested geckos or mourning geckos. Maybe some in both. because these are really cool about how you can attach them to different things. You can attach them in lots of different places. You can use wire if it's not copper or brass wire, or zinc I think is toxic to them too. So some wires are toxic, but you can use non-toxic wires. You can use things like zip ties, certain types of glues you can use, or you can just wedge them into like crevices in cork bark. You have a lot of options about how to mount them when you're in a vivarium. You just need to be careful that they're in a place where they get the airflow, they don't stay soaked for very long, and then they don't stay too dry, don't get too dry. So this is an Ionantha sampler pack. I'm not sure which types these are, but they're all Ionanthas. You can see some interesting color variations there, and this one has a different growth habit than the others. Kind of grows more straight up as opposed to a more ball-like look like these other ones that are a little wider structures. So those are cool. I wonder which ones those are. I may never find out, but they're cool looking. And those are all Ionantha. Next, these are the Abdita or the Brachycaulos. These are red. Many of these plants, these at least become redder, I guess. They're starting to look red on the inside of the plant there. They do look like they need to have a drink. They're looking a little thirsty, but that's okay. I have some water here to do that in just a moment. Set these aside there. And I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons at Patreon for everything you do for the channel to help me continue to make videos. Really appreciate your help, and if you want to continue, if you want to help me continue to make videos, then please check out the link at the end of the video or in the description. So the next one here, we've got this too. Fertilizing Tillandsias can be pretty different than fertilizing other plants. They like it very diluted, and they like it certain. This is the NPK ratios right here, 16:9:25. It's very diluted, and there are certain things that are in plant fertilizers for other plants that will hurt Tillandsias. So I got some Tillandsia fertilizer so I can mix that up and make sure to give them what they need. These are a type of Ionantha known as Fuego. They're called Fuego because, well, that's of course a Spanish word for fire, and these, as many Tillandsias do, they become red when they're about to bloom, but these become they stay red for a lot longer, and it is said that you can see some of them starting to become red on the inner leaves. When they bloom, it is said that they turn red to attract hummingbirds to pollinate their flowers. These are all pretty small ones, and they're in various stages of color. Some of them are quite colorful, getting the reds coming on, and some of them are pretty green. There's a whole bunch of these because we're going to put some in, like I said, gecko vivariums. We're going to do some in the snake vivariums probably, and even some in my daughter's Pac-Man frog vivarium, since we're going to put them up high onto branches in there where he won't be bothering them, because if they were on the ground he'd probably just squash them, but these don't do well on the ground. Most Tillandsias do not. So this will be a perfect fit, I think. Set these down to the side. And we have one more. Package here. In the package, two different species here. This is one of the larger Abditas. These get really pretty big, and once this one is all, it's spread out fully, it'll be even bigger. But that'll be great for maybe a crested gecko vivarium, something like that, quite big. And they get even bigger than that. And then these are really weird. These are weird. And we were talking about the ecology of how Tillandsias are pollinated, many of them at least, are pollinated by hummingbirds, and that's why they turn red when they're about to flower. These have an interesting ecology about them. At least some of the bulbous ones, this is Tillandsia bulbosa. I'm guessing you can see why they're called that. that at least some of the bulbous ones are myrmecophytes, meaning they are colonized by ant colonies, will actually go into the bulb area and live in there. And there have been some studies on that, and in some cases it may not be advantageous for the Tillandsias, and in some cases it may be, but at any rate it's quite an interesting fact of their existence, that an entire ant colony can subsist inside one of these. They do get bigger than this, but quite an interesting thing. So I'm looking forward to keeping these and finding good places to put them in Vivaria. I'm going to start getting them wet because a lot of them, like I said, look dry. You should soak them in water that is not high in minerals for 20 minutes or so for best results. Often 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes longer. It's good to do that, except for the certain ones like this. But I wanted to show you really quick some Tillandsia I've had for a while. Okay, first off, this one is one that Charlie Moorcroft sent me. This is ball moss, Tillandsia recurvata. It is a natively occurring plant in Florida. And he sent me this when it was quite a bit smaller, and it's been growing, and it's kind of fun to see. It's a little bit like Spanish moss. It's related. Tillandsia usnioides is the Spanish moss, and this one is recurvata. It kind of looks like it, but grows more in a ball shape, which is pretty cool. That one seems to be doing all right for me. And then these two, which ones? I gotta make sure I got the right ones. Yeah, these two. These two here were born here. In other words, they were pups produced off of plants that I already that I purchased, and I purchased those the adults it's been about a year and a half ago, something like that, maybe a little more than that. And these are the adults, and you can see the adults are producing little pups down at the bottom. That's how I produced those others. These are Tillandsia Ionantha as well. This one's got a couple of pups. This one's got at least 3 pups, it looks like, possibly more. And I have done very little to take care of these beyond just spritzing them with water. That the stuff I buy at the store that that's the purified water that has been distilled and all that stuff that you buy at the store and you refill yourself. I've done nothing but spray them with that for the past year and a half, except for once I put them in water that had a little bit of tap water and mostly that purified water in it, and soaked them. But I've only soaked them once that entire time, and most of it's just been spraying them, and they've done well enough that they have each produced 1 full pup that are now essentially adults, and they're producing plenty of other pups. So they require very little care. So I think they'll do really well in my Vivaria. And that's about it. So I'll be soaking these others to make sure they get hydrated. I think this one needs to be some hydrated too. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this unusual video today. Hopefully you feel like it's related enough because they are going in Vivaria. And thanks for watching. I post videos every Friday with live streams on Wednesdays, all on aquarium and vivarium pets. Please feel free to share, rate, comment, and if you hadn't already, subscribe. And then tap the bell for all notifications so you don't miss my next video. And here on the left is one of the Tillandsia tectorum that has not yet been watered. And here is one on the right that has been watered. And you can see the difference as the trichomes are much less visible when it is wet. And I'm going to take this one and give it a good spray down. And that's what it should look like when it's wet. And then it should be completely dry within an hour or a few hours. And then you know that you're watering it about the right amount.